Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Kia ora koutou. Ko Chris Davis aho. Ko taku mahi hei kai whakahaere mātua ki Aspire Waitaha. So, lovely to see you all. My name is Chris Davis. I'm the CEO at Aspire. Aspire is as you walk in the door, we're the shop on the left-hand side. We're the Disability Information Advisory Service for Canterbury. Just some health and just a little bit of background about why I'm speaking. So Thrive started from Aspire Canterbury. It's something that Craig, who's going to speak in a moment, it was his vision. He came to us and said, I really want to set up something for learning to thrive with a disability or with a traumatic brain injury or neurological condition. We went, great, we'd love to help you do that. That's been going now for 3 years, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So this year we've actually created a whole new trust, which is Thrive Aotearoa Charitable Trust. So it's gone from being Aspire's project to its own project entirely. And some of us have gone on to form the board of Thrive. So we've got a couple of board members here, if you just want to the board members. And so Thrive is now its own entity. And Craig will talk in a minute about what Thrive actually does, but it's a really great project to kind of give people a space to come and speak about those things. So thanks very much for coming today. That's all I've got to say. I'll introduce Craig. Cool. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll give him a hand, eh? Ko aho, ko Craig Hickford, te mihi, mai oha, a Thrive Connect 3. Welcome. Thrive is something I'm gladly getting asked more and more about as this profile and presence continues to grow. So let's define for Thrive. That's something I'm going to do. Thrive is a community built by and for people living with acquired neurological conditions, all focused on one thing: people living their best life in their place and at their pace. Thrive simply focuses on the practical ways to rebuild confidence, re-establish identity, reconnect with others, and put your mental health back at the center of everyday life. Thrive was initially thought of as purely a speaker series some 3 to 4 years ago, which is now, 3 to 4 years on, which we've renamed as Thrive Connect within the Thrive Tree whānau. From this very successful initial running of Thrive, we have evolved into a program of learning opportunities. I am a passionate learner, educator, and coach, and found the opportunity to place this all within the framework as the perfect way for me to enable the series to further establish itself. The 5 pillars of health at Thrive were born and have evolved as a framework to ensure the intentions of Thrive were met annually and in all ways. The 5 pillars of health serve as a framework, as an anchor framework that is designed by you and for you. This is where my personal apology comes in. My overtly organisational self, with an ex-primary school teacher and principal, passionate curriculum leader, flowed out of me, as I needed to have a framework or a curriculum to adhere to. Thus the pillars were born. That's one of 3. I'm going really quick. What other pillars, you may ask? The 5 pillars are simply to move, to chat, thinking about your mood, to eat, which is my favourite pillar, and to rest. The intention was that if we can get coverage across all of these 5 pillars annually and across a range of varied activities in many meaningful ways, this would intentionally be the purposeful outcome for individuals to have improved mental health. There's very much a We're going to grab from here, we're going to grab from there, we're going to bring it all together. And if you're on board, it's going to help with your mental health. I can freely concede that these 5 pillars and the information acquired and sense of community felt by those who attend begin to place the blocks in place for you to be the best you can be. With more and more of these moments, you will have the opportunity to live your best life. So what next? Thrive Chats and Thrive Active are 2 components that are naturally grown out of Thrive Connect, which you're at today. Thrive Chats is about community. It connects those that want to gather more on a monthly date to simply chat. From this chat means relationships are built to grow personal understandings and beliefs, and life is much different for many of us. Thrive Active has grown out of Thrive Chats and provides an opportunity for the community to meet and explore in a way that is accepting, allows for an element of rediscovery, and as we head out and explore our place. This was created and inspired by a member of our chat group who lives with mobility challenges, who wanted to simply dip her toes into the sea. I can't see her. Is she here today? I see her. This was said at a Thrive group, a Thrive chat session. I'm sure you can remember that. And was heard loudly. And we made this collectively happen. And from this experience, we have continued to head out and about and explore. This year alone, we have been to the Christchurch Botanical Gardens, and last week we explored and reminisced at the Ferrymead Historic Park, a great place to fire the imagination and memory. I'm in the throes of creating a tour of the inner city on the trams. It is simply amazing now, and the rebuild is well into its final stages. Details about this will come out soon. I'm proud to announce that Thrive is to have a stall at the Next Steps Expo on August the 25th at the Parikore Recreation Centre in town. I could go on for longer. I want to go on for longer. You know me. But I have a pretty amazing presenter, that I am so excited to present to you. Professor Julia Rucklidge is a clinical psychologist from the University of Canterbury, is a leading expert on mental health and nutrition. She has given hundreds of talks around the world, including, and you need to go and watch this after we finish this, TEDx, co-authored The Better Brain, and much more. I last night listened to her TEDx talk again and was inspired, especially after a day teaching in a very neurodiverse class. A lot of it made so much sense to me. It is absolutely my privilege, my honour, to present Thrive Connect 3, starring Professor Julia Rucklidge, presenting on the topic of food to thrive, or food and mental health. I agree. Should we put our hands together? Just want to acknowledge Amy Cohen. She does a massive amount of work with Thrive. So let's put our hands together for amazing.
Okay, all right. Does that work?
Yeah.
All right, okay. So, as Craig mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist, and so why would a clinical psychologist be talking to you about nutrition? I got no training in nutrition whatsoever. Sorry, you can leave if you want at any point. But I got no formal nutrition training as a clinical psychologist, nor do medics. I know there's a former psychiatrist here, well, not former, retired. Did you get any nutrition training at all in medical school?
No.
There you go.
Later in life.
Later in life. So it's not part of the training for people who are learning how to help people with mental health issues. And now I think that it should be at the start of the entire training should be about learning about the important role of food. So did I end up speaking in front of you and hundreds of other people, and actually thousands of other people over the last 2 decades? And what happened for me was that I was doing my PhD at the University of Calgary in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So as I said in my BD, I'm from Canada originally. And when I was doing my PhD, I heard about some families who were treating members of their families who had some really serious psychiatric conditions like bipolar disorder, depression, psychosis, and they were using vitamins and minerals to help alleviate their suffering. And so I heard about this and I thought, gosh, that's just not going to work, because only medications and psychotherapy can treat these really serious conditions. But my PhD supervisor, Bonnie Kaplan, who I co-wrote The Better Brain with, she started to do some really small little preliminary studies using these vitamins and minerals with bipolar disorder, and she documented and published people getting well and staying well with these nutrients. And so I have great admiration for Bonnie, respect her greatly, and when she says something like, Julia, you should really study this, I kind of listened. It took me a while, it took me about 10 years to listen, but I did eventually. And so I ended up moving from I moved from Calgary. I went and did a postdoc at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, and then this job came up in New Zealand looking for a child clinical psychologist to teach at the University of Canterbury. So I moved here in 2000, and then I had 2 children. Once they were in school, then I was ready to start looking at this idea. And so I started running clinical trials in 2008, looking at this broad spectrum micronutrient approach. And so that's my background. I'm going to go through a little bit of some of the what we know in this space, and I'll come back to that. But I just thought I would tell you who I am, so that you can understand that if you're going to ask me like some real specifics around nutrition, I'm probably not necessarily the perfect person to be asking. Although in this time, I've learned an awful lot about food. So, but I've come to it in a kind of backward way, starting with mental health and then learning about nutrition. Whereas, if you were going through nutrition or dietetics, you would learn about nutrition and then maybe start to understand its impact on the brain. I'm going to talk about products a little bit, probably towards the end, but I'm not here to sell products. I'm not here to sell food. This is not for sale. None of this. You shouldn't buy it. That's a warning. And I also want to highlight that while I'm going to talk about nutrition, as Craig was talking about, there's so many other things that can contribute to our wellness. Moving, being connected, being calm, those are all so important for keeping us well and stay well. But the mental landscape is not, it's sobering in terms of the increasing number of children, adults struggling with mental health issues. They talk about 1 in 5, 1 in 4 are struggling with mental health problems in any one given year. If we continue to go and take this approach, we're going to be bankrupt. We honestly are, and we already are. We are, our healthcare is struggling. And it astounds me that we continue to just pour money at the bottom of the cliff into those ambulances, and we just pour money in there, and we don't think about all the contributing factors that can make us well, keep us well, and be resilient. So we have it so backwards in so many different ways. But as it's going right now, it's going to bankrupt us. Kids, adults, whoever, wait months, years for treatment. Sometimes they never get into the services at all. And I'm sorry to say this, but our gold standard care, I'm sorry, Brian, isn't working as well as we had hoped. Medication, psychotherapy, they can save lives. I've seen it. However, not enough people get well with these approaches. So we need to be thinking more broadly and be thinking about it in maybe a more creative way and think outside of the box. And that's kind of, I think, what is unique about my position, is that I've kind of come to the nutrition side incredibly naively, so naively, but that meant that I could look at it in any kind of different way. I had no preconceived notions about nutrition, what it is. I wasn't wedded to the star rating system, and I'll tell you why I still am not wedded to the star rating system, which is the rating system that's on the front of all packages, or not all packages, but some packages in the supermarket. And I grew up in a home where I was allowed to like dump sugar all over my cereal, and I thought everyone ate healthy, and that as long as you eat healthy, everything's going to be fine. But we don't eat healthy, and it's something that I really am very, very passionate about trying to change that. So here we are, just ambulances at the bottom of the cliff. And meanwhile, our environments are stressful. I mean, if you think about all the things that our children go through, or all of us go through, I mean, whether or not it's just the stress of education and the motivation, or the doom scrolling, or the fears and the real anxiety about climate change, going through a pandemic, being stuck at home. I mean, that was really detrimental to the health of our children, in particular, young people. And all the environmental things that are going on that we're faced with, whether or not that's earthquakes or floods or other natural disasters. But we're not investing, and that's what I think is so exciting about Thrive, is that it is trying to invest in making us more resilient. But as a public healthcare system, we don't. We don't reinforce the foundations of mental health, and we're not really working on building more resilient brains. So I want us to think about mental health in a totally different way, and that is that we focus on resilience and fostering health rather than treatment of disease and medicalizing distress, which is what we so often, unfortunately, fall into. So how do we become more resilient? Well, we've already heard about some of those ways, and you're in these, I think it's once a week now, or is it once a month?
Once a month.
Once a month. You're talking all the time. You're looking at all kinds of different ways that you can become more resilient. Moving, connecting, all so important. So what I'm going to talk about is that food environment. And what Hippocrates said was that all diseases begin in the gut. So what you feed yourself, what you put in your mouth every single day, maybe 3 times a day, maybe 5 times a day, maybe more than that, what you're feeding yourself is going to end up right here, and there is this incredible connection between the gut and the brain that influences your mental health. We are only at the infancy of discovery in this space, but being a part of this at the forefront of the research and understanding the microbiome, the bacteria that live inside us, the role they play in communicating with our brain is just incredible. And what is remarkable is that in fact most of the signals are going from the gut to the brain rather than from the brain to the gut. So that tells us that what is in here is going to influence how you feel. So you need to care about what you put in your mouth. And why should we care about this brain, the organ, this incredible organ that is actually only 2% of our body weight? But it consumes between 20 to 40% of the nutrients that you eat. So when you eat, you are predominantly feeding this organ. And when you're younger, your metabolic needs are actually higher. So an infant or a child or even a teenager, teens are going through, has anybody got any teens? Had a teen? Massive brain reconstruction. Do you remember that? There's a lot of reconstruction that's happening. The neural networks are forming, their signals are sometimes maybe they're misfiring. They might be a bit impulsive, all kinds of things are going on there. But if you can understand that what's happening is that there's a lot of reconnection going on in their brain, then we can, I think, be a little bit kinder to our teens and better understand why they tend to be a bit more impulsive before thinking things through. So it's an incredibly metabolic organ, and it punches above its weight is how I like to think about it. So along comes one of the biggest social experiments of all time. And you see it in front of me, and it's right here. So, and what I found so just soul destroying, I mean, I spent an hour in the supermarket yesterday preparing for this talk. And this is and I've purchased a whole bunch of things to share with you, not to eat, but just to educate you. And the entire healthy choice have you noticed there's now an aisle sometimes in the grocery store and it says, healthier choices. They are not healthier choices. I don't know, they must pay Woolworths extra money to get into the healthier choice section. Do not be fooled by that label. All of the, and I'll show you this a little bit later, all of the cereals in the healthier choice section were what I would call ultra-processed. And I will explain to you what I mean by ultra-processed. But we have changed in the shortest amount of time in terms of our evolution, our food choices. We've gone from our ancestors, I mean, we don't need to go back to this. I'm not here to just say we're going back to being hunter and gatherer, that you have to get your spear out and go and, there's probably some things that are roaming around in here, but maybe not much, and I don't think it would feed up this group. I'm not saying that, but our ancestors ate real food, and they ate live food and live plants. And we then went to processing, and that we could say that started millions of years ago with the advent of cooking, and that's been great. I mean, it's made a huge difference. It's allowed us to get engaged in other things, or being able to preserve food has been fantastic, so there's less likelihood of famine. So processing in itself is not a bad thing. Canned tomatoes, that's a form of processing. Frozen vegetables, perfectly fine. That's a form of processing. So I'm not here to talk about that. I am here to talk about ultra-processed products. And what's been really useful in this field over the last about maybe 14, 15 years is the development of something that's called the NOVA classification. And you might start to hear more about this because we're starting to think this might be a better way to classify foods than the way we currently classify them with things like this. In some countries they've got like a street light system. Here we've got the let's see, have you ever seen those, the star rating system? I'll explain why I hate it. So we have that, but the NOVA classification is actually quite simple. It's 1 to 4, but I'm going to focus on 4. 1 is your apples that you pluck from the tree. 4 is your ultra-processed. And the way they've defined it is this. Industrially produced edible substances, usually defined as products chemically altered, that's important, formulated industrially, hyperpalatable, ready to drink and eat. But the one that I think is the most useful is number 2, and that is contains ingredients not found in your kitchen. So if you look at the back of a product and you pick something up that I absolutely hate, which is Up and Go, that's got a 4.5 star rating, and you look on the back, actually you don't have to look on the back on this one, and I can't read it very well because my I'm at that age, but okay, we've got 452, 466, 407, 460. Does anybody have that in their kitchen? Okay, there you go, perfect. We have defined it. Do you have emulsifiers in your kitchen? Do you have flavors? Like sometimes you might have some of those like flavors that you might use or coloring that might be in your kitchen. But for the most part, those extra things that we're adding to our food to make it palatable, taste good, no nutritional value whatsoever, that helps us define an ultra-processed product. So why should we care? I mean, the one thing about ultra-processed product is that it's made our life so much easier. We can just sit on the couch and not do anything, and our food can be cooked. It can now be easily delivered to our homes. We never have to do anything around, having to go and hunt or gather or anything. It's really made our life so much easier. But I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought, we're outsourcing cooking to the food industry, and I think we need to be really careful about having done that. And I think we need to take back some of that cooking and bring it back into the kitchen. We've gone through this experiment. It hasn't worked very well for us. If we look at the increasing rates of chronic illness, cancers, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and then mental health issues, they are all, we can relate all of them back. It's not the only risk factor. I'm not here to say that it's, it's if we've cleaned up our food, everything else would go away. But I'm saying it's a really important risk factor that we are currently completely ignoring as being contributing to some of the current challenges that we have in Aotearoa and also globally. So what is wrong with them? Why is it causing so much problem? And one of the ones a lot of people will tell me about is sugar. And absolutely, we need to be mindful about the amount of sugar that we're consuming. On average, New Zealanders are consuming 37 teaspoons of sugar every day. That's how much that's on average. And it's not actually that hard to figure out. You go, really? Seriously? Well, all you have to do, this one says that it's 0 sugar, so it's not a great example. But you know what I'm talking about, all of those fizzy drinks? They all have between 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar each. And so you can see how it can build up really, really quickly. And you can just look on the backs of any of the packages and see the amount of sugar in there. If you just, here's just an example that I've just placed how much sugar there is in the tomato ketchup. Now, I know that you don't put all of that on there, but my point is that every time you put a little bit of a sauce on something, you're just adding a sugar. And then that's how it amounts up to this much. I mean to say everyone in here is consuming that amount, but that's our average in this country. The WHO says we should be taking in about 6 teaspoons of sugar. So we're 6 times higher than what the WHO recommends. Then there's all these other things that are added, and this is what I was talking about, these things that are added to our foods. And they're things like your emulsifiers, which make it sort of creamy texture. It means that when you make an ice cream with emulsifiers, they can allow it to thaw for quite a bit and then freeze, and it's not going to lose its creamy texture. So it's really a great advantage to the food industry. Everything about this extra stuff is to the advantage of the food industry, so that it's got a longer shelf life, or that they can transport it easily. They don't have to have freezers. All of that makes it cheaper for them in terms of their overall overheads. So we've got the emulsifiers, you've got your added sweeteners, and we thought that was the greatest thing in the world, was these sweet, the non-sugar sweeteners. And they are slightly better than sugar, slightly. But they are, what we're learning now is that when you taste, you have that taste on your tongue of that sweetness, it tells your body sugar is coming. And so it releases insulin, even though sugar isn't coming. So it can still have a metabolic effect on you, even though you think you're doing the right thing by having something with a non-sugar sweetener. There are some that are better than others, and there's some natural sweeteners that are absolutely fine, but a lot of the ones that are added to the ultra-processed foods can be problematic. And we're also learning that they influence the lining of your gut. So the system that's communicating with our brain, a lot of these added things are stripping away at the gut lining. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just the messenger here. Does anybody want to go? I'll make it slightly more hopeful at the end, okay? We'll try and get there. But I just think it's important to know this has been part of my journey, and I'll explain how I ended up learning about all this stuff. But we've got all these other extra things that are the colors and those flavors and the thickeners. But the other problem with ultra-processed foods is this one. And that is that we eat more of it. And it's not that you deliberately eat more of it, it's just that it's so much easier to eat that you don't have to chew for as long, and so you eat more calories as a consequence of it being ultra processed. So take these, really sorry, I'm just like, I know that some of these are going to be your favorites. Are you okay?
No.
Do you want to go, Craig?
That's my favorite chip.
But do you know?
I thought I was eating healthy.
Exactly, I know. But I'm sorry, Mark, you invited me.
Answer one.
Okay. They're so easy to eat, aren't they? They're so easy to eat that you end up eating the whole packet, and the whole packet is going to be 500 calories. Is that what we, yeah, 442 calories.
I've never thought about that because I've taken it.
I know, yeah, that's what it is. So that's a quarter of your calories for the day, or, a quarter to a fifth, just like that. And I know I'm certainly not here to blame anyone at all. I just feel so terrible sometimes telling people about this. But I will talk about how this cannot be just individual responsibility. This has got to be bigger than this, because it's so persuasive. What I love, well, I don't love it, but what we often do, my space is just say, just don't eat it, Craig. Don't eat it. Yeah? 70% of the foods in supermarkets are ultra processed. So we tell the individual not to eat it, but then we flood them with this toxic environment. And I just think that's so wrong. Like, why can't we change it at source? Why can't we as a community say, we don't want all this stuff anymore? We don't want it to be in our schools or in our vending machines or in our hospitals or in our prisons. We don't want these foods. How do we do that as a community? How do we tell our governments that we don't want them anymore? So instead, that's why we tell the individual. We say, just take your individual responsibility and you fix it. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair because how does the individual know that this can be problematic? And I'm not, again, here to say that if you ate a donut this morning that you've ruined your life. That it's the accumulation of these foods over a long period of time. So this eating more, there was a study. We're not going to get a lot of these kinds of studies because I don't think they'll get through too many more ethics committees. But what Kevin Hull did in 2000, he probably would have done it in about 2017. It was published in 2019. He randomized a group of normal, healthy adults, half of them to just eating ultra-processed foods and half of them to eating real whole foods. How did he accomplish that? He locked them in a hospital. So they were not allowed to eat anything else, and they had 2 weeks in there, and then they switched, and they went from one condition to the other. And so what they learned was that in that condition where they were exposed to ultra-processed foods, where they were just told you can eat how much you want, but they were told that in the real whole food condition as well, they ate 500 more calories per day in the ultra-processed food condition. Now, you can now start to understand that because that's the 500 calories is right there. You can start to understand how easily that would have happened. And so they gained over those 2 weeks 1 kilogram more than in the other condition. So over time, we can start to understand how this kind of, it can creep up on us and really start to play havoc over a longer period of time. But this is what I'm really in despair of. Now, I don't know if I have this example here. I don't think I do, but that's okay. I've got a picture of it. So we are the land of the feijoa, but instead, when you get onto Air New Zealand, they offer you this. Feijoa cidered popcorn treats. And let me tell you, there is no feijoa in there. No, I know, you're outraged as well. I was outraged when I was like, where's the feijoa? I actually am not a big fan of feijoa. So I thought, oh, here's a way of getting my feijoa in. But no, there's no feijoa. They put something that's called natural flavor in there, or feijoa, like they might have said, I don't know how they will have said it, but natural flavors don't have to come from the original source. They can be coming from something else, like a pine cone. So there you go. And the problem with this is that it's causing nutrient displacement. So we've gone from the corn to the corn chips. So we think we're eating these plants, but they've been so chemically altered, and they've stripped away the nutrients, and then they've added things back in to make it taste good and to get you addicted to it. And so this causes what I call nutrient displacement, which is that we are, as a consequence of this, we are not getting the nutrients of your feijoa anymore. And the nutrients that contain within the feijoa that I'm particularly interested in are vitamins and minerals. They are not in your popcorn treat? Not a lot. There won't be an awful lot. And I'll give you an example of this in a second. So what I think is happening at the moment is that we have what I have called a hidden brain hunger, which is that we have sufficient calories but not enough nutrients, full stomachs, hungry brains. Body has sufficient energy stores, calories. We are not deprived of calories, but the brain is starving of micronutrients. So what are these micronutrients that I'm talking about? They are vitamins and minerals, put simply. We need them, they're essential. We need them only though in a small amount. And they're essential for making things like hormones, neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are things that you've probably heard of. Serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, those are all neurotransmitters. And they're manufactured. The body, you cannot eat serotonin. You have to eat something like tryptophan that will then get converted to serotonin by your body. And the way it does that is through the help of vitamins and minerals. They act as cofactors. And then micronutrients fortify that brain's architecture that I talked about. So we need them, and they're absolutely essential for brain function. And so going back and thinking about my education, that I wasn't taught about the importance of micronutrients for brain activity, I just don't understand Brian, why did we not get taught this kind of thing when we went through? It astounds me, because they are so essential for your signaling. They're essential for supporting the mitochondria. They make ATP, which is essential molecule for energy. If you don't have these vitamins and minerals to help make ATP, you're going to start feeling slow and sluggish. That is going to be the consequence of ATP manufacture being compromised. They help reduce inflammation. They help keep our DNA healthy, and they get rid of toxins that we consume from our environment, like pollutants or plastics. They help get rid of that. So they are absolutely essential, and this is just a few examples. They are so essential for everything that's going on in your body. So brain metabolism it's actually quite simple. It's simply the conversion of chemical A, tryptophan, to chemical B, serotonin. You need an enzyme, your body makes that, and then you need cofactors, and those are minerals and vitamins. And so I often at this point get asked, okay, well, what is the special vitamin or mineral that I should take? A long pause. I'm going to tell you the secret. You ready? There is no single magic nutrient. So you might be hearing about zinc or vitamin D, or you hear about magnesium, or you hear about the special single nutrient. How it works is that here's that manufactured tryptophan to serotonin. Don't worry, it's going to make so much sense. What I'm pointing out are all of those vitamins and minerals. Vitamin C, iron, niacin, phosphorus, calcium, you've heard of them. Copper, riboflavin, they're all essential. So for me to say, okay, actually the only one that you need is, I don't know, B6, what would happen? The rest of that system would fall apart because everything else would be limited. It would limit those chemical reactions. And so our pursuit for this single magic bullet is an incredibly reductionist way of thinking about it. And that in fact we need the whole combination in order for that system to function at its best. So, where are you going to get those from? You're going to get them from your plants or an animal that ate the plants. Animals like cows or your sheep that are grazing on the grass, they are incredible, what I like to call an upcycler. And that means that they take, like the cows will eat the grass, which I assume no one here is doing. You're not a ruminant. But they will take those nutrients out of that grass, and then when you eat that cow, you will get those nutrients upcycled through that system. And you'll get, if they're, and one of the incredible things about this country is that our meat is grass-fed. And we are incredibly blessed to have that, because the research is clear that when you raise a cow on corn, they get sicker, their omega-3 ratios get, omega-3, 6 ratios get all out of whack, and they end up with a lot more omega-6s, which is inflammatory. The nutrients change. The nutrient profile is not as good as grass-fed. And grass-fed, ideally, is like a salad bar for the cow. You don't want just one type of grass. They want lots of different types of grass. So we want to make sure that we're feeding them really well. And Aotearoa is really good at this. The sad thing for me about this is that we export almost all of it. Okay, sorry it's so depressing. I'll try and make it get better soon. Okay, the minerals, they come out of the soil. The plant extracts them, and then the plant makes vitamins with those minerals. We can make some vitamins in our gut. Some of those bacteria can make some vitamins like vitamin K and a few other B vitamins. But for the most part, you need to get it from your food. And that's often why they use the term essential, because we can't make it. So that's where we get them from. And I mean, I could spend, and I won't, but I could spend another hour just talking about the soil and the health of the soil, because I've now started to get really interested in the health of the soil. Because if the soil isn't healthy, then the plant isn't going to be healthy, and then we're not going to be healthy. So we should really be considering and think about it from the perspective of, it's not what we eat, it's what our food ate. It's what our food ate. So remember when I talked about the corn versus grass-fed? We need to care about that. We need to care about the health of our soil, because that is going to influence our health ultimately. And it's why, and that's also why in some cases we do now need to supplement, because of the health of our soil. And that's probably partially why we've seen such great success with the supplements, because we're not able to easily get it out of our food anymore. So these are great starting places. Nuts, your legume, your fish, your fruits and vegetables, your beans, your lentils. When I get pushback, and I do often get a lot of pushback on how can you tell us to eat real food, they're so expensive. And I hear that a lot, and it's true. There are some things about some of our foods that are really expensive, and it's got to do with the fiscal levers though. Why is butter that is made in this country so expensive? Why is that? Because of market forces, because it's so desirable to other countries. And you just have to go, like I just was in Canada a few months ago, and I looked at the butter and I'm like, why is the butter so white? What is it about the butter over here? Well, it turns out that when it's corn-fed, when the cows are corn-fed, it changes that nutrient profile, and there's less beta-carotene in it. And that is why our wonderful butter that you buy here is such a beautiful yellow color. So it's certainly a prized possession. You can see why other countries want it. But things like lentils, beans are actually a really cheap, nourishing source of food. And so it's about eating in season and just learning more about how to cook, getting educated around cooking, and that can go a long way around making food less expensive. So I talked about that nutrient displacement, and so this slide is going to show you and highlight that for you. So I've listed some of the vitamins and minerals, not all of them. I couldn't get them on the slide. There's about 30, as I said. And I'm going to tell it to you relative to the recommended dietary allowance, RDA. Has everyone heard about RDA? Do you guys know RDA or DV or RDI? You ever seen on there on the back of a package? It'll say percentage of RDI. Recommended diet. Yeah, yes. And you'll see them on the back of like your one-a-days in the supermarket for your vitamin mineral pill. Say something like it's 25% of RDA. In fact, this one, it doesn't say that. It'll say it on cereal packages. Now, sorry to tell you this, but I'm not a big fan of the RDA. But that's because it's about telling us how much of a nutrient we need in order to prevent ourselves from getting scurvy or rickets, but it's not about optimal health. So it's a metric, but it's flawed. And it was developed actually just post-World War II to make sure that our troops could fight well, so it's about muscles and heart, but nothing about the brain's needs went into the development of RDA. Which is relevant because remember what I said, the brain is a really hungry organ. So why wouldn't we think about the brain when we're developing these metrics? I don't know. But I'm just here to tell you how it works. So percentage of RDA, it still works for this graph though, because even though it's a metric that I'm not a fan of, you can see that there's not a lot in these ultra-processed options. Your donut, your hot dog, your crackers, your French fries, your white bread, your margarine, and then your soft drink. Well, I guess this would be a soft drink. They might have fortified it. They might have thrown some in. Oh, they did. They have, and they've actually told us about it relative to RDA. So some of these, but your Coca-Cola won't have any additional nutrients in it. And then here's some real foods. So your kiwi fruit, your kale, your salmon, your lentils, your banana, your steak, your egg, your Brazil nuts. And I want you to notice that it's going above 100 on some of these. And it's going above 100, let's say, on vitamin C for your kiwi fruit. And if RDA was like the gold standard that we need to achieve, well, let me tell you, we're going twice over in our kiwi fruit. And we're exporting it, and people love it. So, and people aren't dropping dead when they go over RDA. So I'm just highlighting that our desire to kind of stick around this RDA doesn't make an awful lot of sense. Okay, so any questions? Let me pause for a second. How are you going? Yes?
So I was really shocked the other day to find out that a lovely Coca-Cola has a high amount of salt.
Yeah.
And then they add the sugar to try and mask that.
Yeah.
And then drilling down a little bit more, they have this sweet spot in terms of, sorry, no pun intended.
Yeah.
They have a sweet spot where they literally just get it right to the edge of where they can get as much salt, obviously, to preserve it, and then the sugar to mask the taste.
Yeah, I know.
And so the reason that we have, like we have a fizzy drink, but then we feel really thirsty is because salt is literally just taking all that moisture out of our bodies.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. And so the takeaway from that, no pun intended, don't drink Coke. And unfortunately, I even brought an example of water. Oh. It's low in sugar. Well, let me introduce you. This is probably a good time. Actually, I might need this back. Is that possible? Because then I can use both of my hands. Why don't I introduce you to this app that I have been introduced to? Has anybody heard of PyWise? Has anybody been using it? Yes? Does that work? There we go. So, I think so. So, let me see if I can make this work. This is the first time that I have tried this. Yes? So you can see my phone. And what I love about this is that you can walk around the supermarket, which is what I did yesterday for an hour, and got depressed. Did some videos on Instagram, you can watch those. And all you do is you take your product and then you scan it, and then it tells you whether or not it's ultra-processed or not, according to the NOVA 4 classification. And so you can tell right now that's ultra-processed. So why in the world is the pump ultra-processed? And so it says, and then you can just click on that. That's what I've done. And it says contains multiple ultra-processed ingredients, including artificial flavors, preservatives 211, synthetic sweeteners 960, antioxidants 385, and food acids, typically markers of industrial formulation. And then you can look at what those food additives are, and then it lists them all. Who would have thought all of that was in this? Who would have ever known? And you just think, oh, it's got a bit of berry flavor in it. But in fact, it probably doesn't have any berry in it. No berry. No berry. No berry. I mean, you can laugh because it's crazy, right? And then it'll tell you about the impact on blood sugar. It'll tell you about its sugar content, how much of that product is sugar. It'll tell you about protein. It'll tell you how much calories are in there, salt content. It doesn't have any salt, or not much. And then how much saturated fat there is in there. So it's a useful app to help you with the scanning. And so if we do something else, and I'm sorry.
You're going to see them.
You can have them all.
Let's work on it.
Here we go. Let's see.
Oh, no.
Woo! Okay, I love the little celebration. And there you go. That red tells you that it's number 4. That's what it tells you. And so why is it that it's ultra processed? And that's because it contains industrial processing markers, including natural flavors, yeast extract, potassium chloride. Extruded, popped processing transforms the whole peas into chip form using industrial techniques. I'm so sorry, Craig. You invited me so much of that again. So,
We've had fun. Thank you very much. We've had fun.
you know, these things like your powders that you know, your sauces, yeah, you can scan it. So you just take the picture. See how simple this is? And then I ran into my neighbor at the supermarket, and she had a trolley full, and she's looking at me. I'm like, my trolley full is full of crap, which is unusual for me. Sorry, I shouldn't use that word. And she's looking, because she knows what I do. And I'm like, no, this is all props for a talk. And I said, do you want me to scan some things in your trolley? And I do a couple, and then she runs away. She's like, I have to go home. And then it contains multiple ultra-processed ingredients: glucose, yeast extract, vegetable fat, artificial flavors, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives you a little bit more knowledge. And it's not to say you can't ever eat these. I mean, of course, you can't live in our modern world without having some ultra-processed products. But it's just being a bit more mindful, and a bit more knowledge can go a long way toward just reducing our consumption of this. And in so, remember, like, okay, so why should we want to reduce it? Let's come back to the presentation. What do we know about the relationship between these nutrients and mental health? And the answer is that we know actually quite a bit. So we've got research. We have research. Are you guys hearing me okay? Do I need to hold it? Okay, I'll do that. We have research from pregnancy all the way to older years, looking at the relationship between what we eat and our mental health. And it started with what we call cross-sectional studies, and that's where we ask people what they're eating, and then we find out what their mental health, like, do a measure of depression or anxiety or stress, and we find out that they're related, and that the more you eat ultra-processed foods, the more mental health challenges that you might have. So we know that, but correlation, as everyone always will tell me, and is not causation. But now we have studies that are longitudinal, which are long time, like you find out what people are eating today, and then we follow them over time, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years out. And we learn that what I ate today is a risk factor for my mental health down the road. Even if I have healthy mental health today, that the more I eat ultra-processed food today, that influences outcome. And there's also data, though, where you take people who are struggling with their mental health, and they've got a diet that is high in these ultra-processed products, and you help them shift their diet towards eating more real whole foods, or towards like a Mediterranean-style diet. The good news is that you can improve their mental health. And we've got studies like that in children, in teens, in adults, and in the older years. And all of those studies are reassuring that it's never too late to change. So no matter how old you are, never too late to change your diet, because it can have a positive impact on your mental health. But I would, of course, just remind us to do all the other things that we know that are important for improving your mental health as well. This is just one of those pillars. So we've got all of this data, rich 2 decades of data now, in all highlighting the importance of nutrition. So the takeaway is that the more we eat really healthy fish and your fruits, your legumes, the better our well-being. And the more you eat foods that are consistent with what I call the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet, the lower your well-being. So it's pretty straightforward way to something that you can start thinking about. And so the way I like to think about this is that we are now operating on an basically with an empty battery. If we're eating a lot of these foods, you're not getting a lot of those vitamins and minerals. You're getting some, but probably not an adequate amount. And so if you then add in high demand, like high stress, or that there's things unique to you that mean you have a higher nutritional need, whether or not that's pregnancy, or you're a teen, or you've had an injury, all of those things will influence that brain capacity. So it's going to lag, it's going to shut down, it's going to blow up. And that starts to help us understand why we in children, we see this as meltdowns, we see this as irritability, we see it as being distracted, we see it as low mood. But what we are doing at the moment is that we can often interpret what I wonder is maybe a biological issue from the biological perspective of not having the essential nutrients. And we often interpret it as a psychological one. It's not to say that the psychological interpretations aren't important, but if you're not thinking about the biological foundation and making sure that that foundation is in a good state, it's going to be a lot harder to redirect a child or to help them from a psychological perspective, or getting them to thinking about changing the way they think, etc., if they are running on empty. Does that kind of make some sense? So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it now. So an obvious solution is to just tell everyone to eat better, but as I think we've already learned, is that it's hard to know how to eat better. I've been giving you examples along the way, but you might know about the healthy plate. That might be something you might think about, although, when you look at that, you go, well, what is the protein or carb, or what, we know what vegetables are. But you might get the nutrition information, which is on the back of every package. So, this is a great example. 5 stars. Okay, on the back of the package or on the side sometimes. This is on the side. So you see nutritional information is on the side. You've seen them before, and it tells you what energy it has. So that's your calories. It tells you about your protein, your fat, your carbs. And it'll tell you about sodium. That is the only micronutrient that it will tell you about. And that's because because people are encouraged to consume less sodium. But it's not, the food industry is not required to tell you anything about those essential vitamins and minerals. There is no law that says they have to put those on the package. And guess what? They don't. But if they were to be mandated to put up all those essential nutrients, guess what their quantity would probably be? 0. Yeah, it would be 0. So the only things that they're mandated to put up are those macronutrients. They're important, your macronutrients, but they are overshadowing the importance, the even more greater importance of those micronutrients. So then they have the Health Star system, which you see at the front of the package, and this one's 5 stars. And let's just scan this one. Let's see. Go. You ready? 5 stars. What is 5 stars supposed to tell us? It's gold. Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. It should be green. No, it's red. Sorry, guys. It's got glucose syrup, glycerin, natural flavors, emulsifiers, acidity regulators, a whole list of or not a huge list, but a list of food additives that have been added to that. Does that mean it's bad? Well, it's got nuts and other things that are in it that are good, but it's being chemically altered in a lot of different ways. But the 5-star rating, just to educate you on this, the 5-star rating, it's about what's not in it. So to get a 5-star rating is that it's low in calories, low in salt, low in fat, saturated fat, and low in calories, sugar, and then fortified with one nutrient will give you a 5-star rating. So like if it was fortified with, say, iron or fiber, then that will give you your 5-star rating. Nothing about that 5-star rating has anything to do with the fact that it's got all those extra things added to it, or that it might have been sprayed with glyphosate or other things. It's not come into that 5-star rating. Does that, who is surprised and shocked by that? Hands up, yeah. We should demand more of the food industry. And the fact is that it's voluntary, and they're going to mandate it. That's what the government is doing right now. They're going to say, we want these star ratings on everything. And I'm like, so that we can sell an ultra-processed food with a 5-star rating? Is that as what we aspire to? Right? No, we shouldn't aspire. We need to aspire higher than that. So I mean, as I always say, the cardboard box would have gotten at least 4 stars. Okay. All right. The other thing that's often on packages is that they try to sell it to you as something. I don't know. I'm just picking things up. Oh, this is low. This apparently gets your 1 serve of your 5 a day. You're kidding. 1 serve of your 5. I don't believe that. We don't have time for me to investigate that. But they will tell you things that one of life's little joys. But there's all kinds of ways they will try to sell this for you. Oh, this one's made for moving, but that's ultra processed. I mean, all of these are unfortunately. This one, oh, love this. Plant-based protein. Why do you think they put that on there? Seem healthier, that's right. But also because people might be thinking, oh, that means that it'll be a lower carbon footprint. Do you think this was made here? So that, I think, is kind of a form of health washing or greenwashing, is to say plant-based. So that worries me when they do that, because you think, oh, it's going to be better for the environment. No, possibly not. I mean, it could be that it's fine, but in many instances, that's just a form of greenwashing. So these are the Nova 4 classification, the different categories they've got. So it's your soft drinks, your chips, and your things, and your like that, those ones, your white bread, your chocolates, your sweets, your sugared cornflakes, and your all of your most cereals are ultra processed. I'm sorry to tell you this, the ramen noodles, which is such a favorite amongst university students. Sorry, just. Maybe last one. You get it, don't you now? You figured this one out? Yeah, it's ultra processed, and it's got 627, 621, 631 emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners, etc. So your takeaways, all of those sugar sweetened yogurts, and your sauces. And I gave you that example of sauces. A lot of the sauces are ultra processed. So as a consequence of the food labeling, we will not be instructed to think about its micronutrient adequacy at all. And so, under what conditions might you need more micronutrients than what you get out of your food? So I often get asked this, and given what I've described, how hard it is to shop, the foods that we're buying are probably a lot of them low in micronutrients. The soil, the health of the soil, even if you're eating real whole foods, the micronutrient content and the ability of the plants to get the nutrients out of the soil has been compromised because of the way we till. When you till your land, you end up messing around with the ecosystem within that soil so that it's not as good and as capable at helping the plants. It goes on and on and on around the challenges. So when might you need more nutrients? And that would be because of the way we're looking after the soil, and that we select things. We select our vegetables because they transport well, not because they're nourishing. We might have genetic differences. Like, remember I talked about that enzyme, A to B. If that enzyme has got a little bit of a defect in it, in terms of the coding for it, then that means you might need a little bit more of those cofactors that I talked about, those vitamins and minerals, to help correct that enzymatic reaction. As we age, our ability to get nutrients out of our food declines. If we take medications, statins, birth control pill, antidepressants, name any medication, each of them can have an influence specifically around. Do you want to? Did you?
I'll just say levodopa and Parkinsonism. That would be a biggie. I would imagine they would need a lot
of extra nutrients because it can't exactly. So every single medications will have a positive. Of course, there's a reason why you take it, but just know that they can cause, some of them can cause some very specific nutrient depletions. The health of our gut will influence your ability to absorb the food that you do eat, or to digest it properly, or those microbes to get it out, get what you need out of it. If our environment has got lots of pollutants in it, then that can be a problem. When we're stressed, that can also affect our nutrient needs, because our nutrient needs when we're stressed are higher because you are supporting the fight-flight response. And then if you had a brain injury, I think under those circumstances, then your nutritional needs would be higher because your brain is trying to fix itself and heal. And so under those circumstances, your nutritional needs, I would say and argue, would be higher. So would supplementing make sense? Does it help? And so this is my research that I've been doing over the last 2 decades, and I'm going to summarize it pretty much in one slide. But I always want to tell people that supplementation is simply proof of principle, which is that our food environment is a mismatch for our brain's needs. So when we've been giving people extra nutrients, vitamins and minerals, than what they can get out of their food, what we've learned is that, and that they get well, I kind of have to go, why aren't they getting those nutrients out of their food? And I've explained now, hopefully you know why. So it's just that mismatch. And how much are we giving? Well, I told you about the RDA, and I'm not a big fan of the RDA because I think it's a minimal amount. The UL is a number. Is there like a basketball game going on? Or? Yeah, I mean, that's okay. It sounds like fun. Do you guys want to go and move a little bit? Yeah, move. Do you want to? Maybe do you want to? I know you've been sitting here a long time, and I'm almost done the formal part of it. But does anybody want to just stand up and move or ask a question, or? You guys are okay? I think it's great.
And the music stopped.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Let's start.
Okay, so I put this slide up just for those of you who are really keen to understand the doses. And that I often hear about doses, they're so high and you're gonna harm people. That's why you need to know about the UL. And that's the upper limit. And the upper limit is not a perfect metric because, as you can imagine, the way they've decided an upper limit for a nutrient is based on giving that one nutrient. And as I told you before, giving one nutrient makes no sense, but that's how they'll find the UL. So the UL for zinc is based on it causing a copper deficiency, but if you take zinc with copper, that won't happen. So the ULs don't always make sense. So sometimes the nutrients that we've been giving go above the UL, but for logical reasons. So we think that's probably the therapeutic range. And so in our studies, we've been giving people up to 12 pills a day, 3 times a day, which sounds like a lot, but if you think about those minerals can be bulky. And so that's why that's so many pills. That's why there's so many pills to take. With kids, it's between 8 to 12. For stress, we've done some studies on stress after the earthquakes. We used a dose of around 4 to 8. So that depending on what you're targeting will influence the dose. If it's something that really needs a lot of nutrition, a lot of nutrients added in, like if you were thinking of using nutrients to say support you with a brain injury, for example, there's been a few case studies. There's not been any big controlled trials, but when they have done that, they've used that upper dose. And there's been some really incredible stories of people getting well, but they are not in that kind of controlled fashion that researchers like to hear about. But at least they're promising. And then this just gives you an idea, just the breadth of the nutrients that we are giving people. So it's not just a couple of, sprinkling of a few, and the doses are also quite high. So what have we found? And so here's 20 years of research in one slide. We and others, not just my lab, but studies from all over the world using what we call the broad spectrum micronutrient approach, broad spectrum meaning lots of nutrients. What we found is that we've been able to reduce the symptoms associated with ADHD. Others have done studies on autism and have been helpful on the symptoms associated with that. In fact, the symptoms that we see improve the best across all our studies are what I call emotional dysregulation. And you see emotional dysregulation across all kinds of different challenges, whether or not that's depression or anxiety, or even you'll see that, as I'll say in another slide, is around when people have had a serious impact. Aggression in prisoners, there's lots of data in this space showing that additional nutrients helps reduce aggression. We've done studies where we've shown recovery from depression is accelerated with the use of micronutrients compared to placebo. We've helped people with stress, anxiety. We've even helped people quit smoking. And then there's also been lots of studies that have been done in older people, not mine, but others, researchers in other parts of the world who have shown that you can slow cognitive decline. So there's some exciting stories across the entire lifespan. And then we ran a study with women who were struggling with depression during pregnancy. And not only did those moms do well during pregnancy in terms of reduction of antenatal depression, but their birth outcomes were so much better than what would have happened if we allowed the risk factors associated with depression to come in, because those kids, there were lower rates of preterm birth, the kids were healthier weight, they were longer, there was less postpartum hemorrhaging in the vaginal births, there was fewer infant resuscitations, and we also compared it to standard care, and in every indicator that we looked at, the outcomes were better. So, I just would love to see this roll out. Getting this to roll out is a huge challenge, but it would be really nice because we could make a huge difference in terms of the start of life. And then we looked at those infants, and the infants were more regulated. They had better motor control. Everything that we looked at, orientation, emotional regulation, everything was tracking well. And then we've just finished a study that we just published on teens and helping teens with irritability. And who doesn't want to reduce irritability in teens? So we recruited your most irritable teens in actually the whole nation. We did this online, and we showed that the more severe the irritability, the better the outcome with the micronutrients over placebo. So really wonderful outcomes, and also reduction in suicidal ideation. So everything is pointing in that same direction of some benefits. And then we've also shown some benefits in sleep. So I thought I'd show you a video of just some of the kids who have gone through our trials. The kids and the mums have given consent.
There is no side effects, there's only the good side effects, which I think if the government thinks that there is bad side effects, it's only good because there's no bad. That's what it's meant to be, it's meant to be good. The good effects are that it helps you, it makes you healthy, should I say, and it makes you just think and do stuff and, well, just behave. And if you have ADHD, it's more you eat, more helps you out quite a lot. Other kids have ADHD like I myself. I recommend it very well for them.
Fantastic. Anything else you'd like to say, Cody?
Children, you got to try these pills, because if you want to get a better life, you have to. Well, once I came here and took the pills, I was about to be alive.
Good, and I can not eat fruits or not headache, and I listen to my teacher and I do what she asks me to do.
We call those side effects. No F words. Okay, so why would this be relevant to any kind of traumatic brain injury? And that's because it's not that, as I said, we haven't done studies specifically, but some of the symptoms that we have been observing getting better we often will see them in a sequelae of TBI, like emotional discontrol, or being stressed, or being impaired sleep, irritability, impulsive aggression, agitation, and depression. So this is sort of where I'm at now. Is our resilience lower due to our poor nutrient intake? So what are those positive steps that we can take in our journey to wellness? And so one thing I would always say is just start the day well with high protein options, not the cereals. Make your own cereal, make your own granola, maybe pancakes with eggs and banana and other healthier things. Could be meat, cheese slices, boiled eggs, scrambled eggs, Greek yogurt, homemade muesli, lots of nuts, feta, halloumi squares, just some ideas of other ways of thinking about breakfast. Or it could be peanut butter, fruit, or leftovers from the night before would be absolutely fine too. Look after your microbiome. There's a lot of things that we can't control, like whether or not you were vaginal or C-section, or whether you were breastfed or your genetics. But there are quite a few things that we can control that influence the diversity of your microbiome. And that's things like our lifestyle, what we cook, what we eat, whether we're exposed to pesticides, and our diet. I've mentioned already the eating well on a budget and some of the things to do there, and that's things like your buying season. The frozen, canned, they're all fine in terms of their nutrient quality. Cooking in bulk, cheaper protein sources. I talked about things like your lentils or your beans, your canned fish, all really good sources of protein. Explore community gardens, start to learn to grow your food. Do you guys grow your food? Is there like a community garden here? Oh, yes?
Well, we grow our veggies.
Awesome, that's perfect, perfect.
I don't think it's yet clicked on, but there are signs of community gardens appearing.
Yeah. Oh, there's community gardens all over the place. There's an amazing one at the University of Canterbury that I've been introducing our students to. Store brands, plan your meals, don't shop hungry, prep things yourself, that kind of thing. And then I just wanted to leave you with one last way of thinking about food, and that is around supporting that microbiome. And there's research that's been done where they got lots of microbiome samples. Just, I'll let you realize how they did that, and think about how they did that. And we have done microbiome, just as an aside, my lab has done microbiome samples, and so that's basically where you get the phone call and the deposit is in the mailbox, can you come and pick it up? And so we go and pick it up and then we send it off to get it analyzed. Anyway, that's an aside. That's just the fun stuff that ends up happening in my lab. And so is this a concept of 30 plants a week? This came out of Zoe. This is Tim Spector in University of College London. And they came up with this magic number, well not magic, but kind of a goal of 30 plants a week. And I like this concept because it moves and shifts us away from thinking about just fruits and vegetables as being the healthy things that we need to eat. And so yes, it's the fruits and your vegetables, but it's also then that includes your legumes. They can be part of that count. Your chickpeas, your lentils, and then beans, all the different types of beans, they each count. So whether, if you had a medley of beans, like your butter beans and your black beans and your kidney beans, that's 3 of your plants per week. Your whole grains, your spices, your herbs, they all count. Your coffee or dark chocolate, that counts too. Just watch out for emulsifiers in some of the dark chocolates. I've noticed it's been creeping in. And then on top of that, you want to make sure you get lots of probiotics, like your yogurts and your kefir and other, kombucha, other types of fermented foods. And then reducing your consumption of ultra-processed foods, because we know that's good for your microbiome. And that's those emulsifiers and sweeteners that I talked about. They're all having a negative impact on the microbiome. But I also talk about the 80-20 rule, which is that, and I've said this already all the way through, is that it's not that you're aiming for perfection, it's about reducing your consumption of ultra-processed foods. You're not gonna, there's no way, and nor should you, because sometimes food is just about enjoying it, I think. Let's see. Are we stuck? No? You can tell. Well, it's not working. Doesn't look like it wants to work for me today, but that's okay, because all I say is, when in Rome, have gelato. So building our resilience, looking forward. It's about the connecting. It's about meditation. It's about observing nature. It's about gratitude. It's about moving, yoga, cooking, learning to grow your food, ice baths, reducing your connection with social media, and sleeping well. And so when a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. So let's just make sure you've been listening. So let's just do a test. All right, are you ready? I want you to say real food, processed, or ultra processed, okay? Well done. All right. Processed. If you made it in your kitchen, and then the last one, ultra processed. There's your ingredients with its 4.5 star rating, and there are no bananas in it. So if you've enjoyed what I've presented, I've written a book, The Better Brain. It's available, I don't know, wherever you buy your books, or they're in the library. Huh? Oh, they're in the cafe. Oh my goodness, fantastic. I've developed a free online course, and so you can pay a little bit of money and get a certificate. It's on edX. And then I've developed 3 UC online educational courses on nutrition and well-being, psychology well-being, and lifestyle and well-being. And then my last slide is just about, I will get asked, what are the micronutrients that you studied? And so here's a slide telling you exactly that. Actually, I first say, I'm not here to sell products, I'm here to sell an idea. You can email my lab, mental health nutrition, at canterbury.ac.nz. But I also have this slide here, which is how to purchase it here. Now, it's complicated, and it's a long story about why it's so complicated, but the bottom line is that supplements in New Zealand, as they are currently regulated based on incredibly outdated regulations from 1985, are that supplements cannot be therapeutic. They cannot be used or sold to prevent or treat disease, because only a medicine can do that. So what happens when a supplement is proven to be therapeutic, which is what I've proven over the years and others? What does the government do? It basically makes it very difficult to get hold of it, because it can no longer be sold as a supplement. So they went through a phase of banning it, and they threatened the distributor with jail time and lots of money. 100 grand, I know. So there was a time here where it was really hard to get the supplements that I was studying, and it's not for lack of trying. I've spoken to so many MPs and politicians over the years of trying to get this solved, but it's not an easy one. So you can now get a prescription from a doctor and get it through Stay Well Pharmacy. What they're doing is that they are selling it as an unapproved medicine. So that is the only way you can get it in New Zealand at the moment. It can't be registered as a medicine because the medicine approval process is based on a drug model, and they need to be made in a pharmaceutical grade facility. And then when you put in your application, you have to prove that there's no significant interactions amongst all of the different ingredients. And when you have something that's got 48 ingredients, it's an impossible form to fill in. So the MedSafe haven't made it simple, unfortunately. So you can though go through Stay Well Pharmacy, because they've been decided in the last month to sell it, or to be able to, you can buy it through them, or you can buy it with a letter. I know this just sounds like so crazy, but this is just the workarounds. And you can get a letter, and you can buy the version. There's 2 different versions. One of them has a small amount of lithium in it, and that's what creates all of the problems, is that there's less than, Brian, 1 milligram of lithium, which is not therapeutic, but
that looks advocated putting it in the water.
That's right, exactly. But the starting point for lithium is what, 250 milligrams if you were using it therapeutically, and you go up to what, a gram or something. So it's not the same thing. But lithium was deemed a medicine. Sorry, I'm telling you more than you might ever want to know, but lithium was deemed a medicine before the regulations for supplements. It's been around since 40s,
Yeah,
50s?
since Cade, I think it was in the early 50s.
Yeah, so it was deemed a medicine before the supplements came along. So when the regulations on supplements came along, they didn't include lithium as a mineral, and so it's not seen as a mineral by law in New Zealand. So there's a version without lithium, and that you can somewhat buy with a letter, and slightly easier because you don't have to. I don't know about whether the prescription you have to go back every 3 months. So it's not simple, but there you go. That's often what I'm asked about. It used to be simpler. If I had proven it didn't work, you'd be able to buy it anywhere. So I just want to acknowledge all the funders. I have not been funded by the industry ever, and but I have been funded. One of the funders, which also makes it so sad for me, is that one of the funders was Health Research Council, which is the government. So the government funded my research, and then New Zealanders participated in our research, and then the government is not figuring out any way to make it easy access, and Pharmac won't fund it because it's not a medicine. And that's it. So I'm happy to take questions, and I thank you so much for your attention. Yes.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering, I've enjoyed your talk, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on products like Nutrient Rescue.
Nutrient Rescue, really great product, in terms of its concept, and that it will not be ultra processed, as far as I know. I haven't scanned it, but I know what's in it, and I know that it's a really well thought through product. And I hear lots of anecdotal stories about people feeling great on it, so I think it's a good option. The thing is, I can't say that yes, it will treat something the way I can say the micronutrients will, because the studies haven't been done. But based on what I've just told you about the way the industry works and the regulation of foods cannot be medicines. And so if Nutrient Rescue were to prove that it treated, I don't know, something, they wouldn't be allowed to put that on the package. Then they wouldn't be allowed to advertise that, because it's not allowed to be therapeutic. I mean, think deeply about how ridiculous that is, because oranges stop us from dying of scurvy, but I can tell you that, but the people who sell the oranges can't. Brian.
Julia, thank you for a very interesting talk. It's clear you've got a great passion for what you have been talking to us about. I want to ask you a very specific question about Parkinsonism.
Yeah.
Because, amongst other things, we're told you've got the 5 pillars, but in Parkinsonism, a Mediterranean diet. So if you follow a really good Mediterranean diet and stick to it, are you in fact going to get enough of everything you need? Because one of the things I know is that when you get Parkinsonism, you're treated with a drug to replace the dopamine you don't have. So you get levodopa, carbidopa. Levodopa increases something in your system called homocysteine. And the more levodopa you get, the higher the homocysteine gets. If the homocysteine gets high, then your dopamine producing cells actually don't work, and then they start to die off. You get all the problems. My understanding is that if you were taking vitamins B1, B6, B12, and folate, then that brings the homocysteine
and
down.
omega-3s.
And therefore, so, is the Mediterranean diet enough? Or if you've got Parkinson's, do you need to be doing more?
I think that's a great question. I have not personally done any research on Parkinson's, and I don't know if there are any micronutrient specific studies that have been done on Parkinson's. I think that would be a great area of research. We've seen the decrease in homocysteine in our studies with the micronutrients that we've been giving. Would they help? I don't know. But I think your hypothesis is a really good one. So does somebody, the challenge is, one of the challenges that I would think of is that we know that there's a medication micronutrient interaction with some of the psych meds. So the psych meds need to be lowered over time when the micronutrients come on board, and you can get away with a lower dose. So would you have to do that with, I don't know. Would there be an increase in the side effects of the levodopa? I don't know. It's a really good question, Brian.
Not absolutely clear about
Yeah.
that.
Huh?
I'm saying I'm not absolutely clear about that one.
Yeah, so that would be something, but if you could get away with a lower dose of the levodopa, I imagine that would be a good thing. So, yeah, no, it's a great question, and maybe I will continue to encourage my colleagues who do research in that space, whether they'd like to launch a study.
But I mean, micronutrients might not hurt, given that they're going to contain all these things.
Yeah.
Amongst others, as we know, yeah.
I mean, theoretically, they should provide a whole bunch of extra nutrients, but I'd just be mindful of that combination.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. There was another question though. Did you put up your hand before? Who was it? There was this.
Joanna.
Oh, it was. Okay, sorry, it was you. Okay, go for it.
I have a brain injury, so I was just wondering if you could put up the slide again of the 30 plants a day.
Yeah.
Just I could take that in quickly.
Yes,
I'll,
and
I'll take a photograph of that.
You
if
can,
that's okay.
but I'm also very happy to share my slides. I am not there. Why would I not? There we go.
Thank you so much. I'll just take a
There you
photograph.
go.
That was, I hadn't thought of things like
I thought of it that way. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. I mean, I can send them to Craig, a PDF
We
of them.
can share them. I don't mind sharing them.
Yeah.
I'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I do have one copy here that you can take away. The one that I
I've
printed
got my
off.
photo now.
Anybody think
One copy.
you would like? That's the only copy. You said it first. Okay. Other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
If you stand at, say, the entrance to a supermarket and look at people coming and going, and you look at the shape of people, you know what I'm saying? And you look at this as a social problem.
Yeah.
How big a problem is let's call it the psychology of convenience, you know,
I know.
reversing the issues that
Exactly. And that's why I don't think an individual can necessarily easily do it alone, because you're just surrounded by it. And so we tell people, just don't eat it. And then you're surrounded by it. So it's really hard. So that's where I think it should be bipartisan. This should not be something for a specific government, in my opinion. That we need to look at this industry. We need to look at how we've let it take over and start taxing. I mean, you can start with sugary drinks. That's an easy one because people will start saying, well, if you tax that stuff, but that's food, and you can end up with meltdowns. But if you take the sugary drinks as a starting point, they've done that overseas and they've been successful. The other thing that you could do is kind of take the approach like cigarettes, and I see ultra-processed foods as the cigarette of the 21st century, and that the way we finally got people to stop smoking was not just one thing. It was front of package labeling, that was one thing. They've done that in South America where they put skulls and bones on the front of ultra-processed foods, and you're like, okay, I guess that's telling me something. But instead we show happy faces and, I don't know, Dora the Explorer, so you want to buy it. And so that has worked as an effective population strategy, is to front of flat label. But the other things that got people to quit smoking were things like the taxes, and then just reducing the environments in which you could smoke and making that type harder and harder to do it. So this approach could be applied to ultra-processed products, but it's going to take us decades to get there because the food industry will not they'll play hardball, right? I know.
But education surely does.
Yeah, but I think education does only go so far. If you don't have the fiscal levers that can influence the price of food, you can only go so far. Why is it that we can, we make enough food to feed 40 million people, and yet we have a level of food insecurity, which is about 20% of our young people. That we should all be ashamed of that. That's something that's a national disgrace because we should be able to feed our own people and feed our own people well. So this is just about this is about capitalism, isn't it? At the end of the day, that people, I'm not begrudging the farmers who export because that's the way they make money. So, but if the fiscal levers were changed, then people behave differently. And so that has to be dealt with at a government level, I think. I mean, I don't know. Or just don't, only shop at the farmers markets. If we all stopped shopping at the supermarket, then we might be sending a very strong message. I don't know how realistic that is, but so it's really, really tough. And I get it, because I talk about this with people all the time. Hold on, how about we go to the back and then we'll come back.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I got multiple sclerosis
Yes.
in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's not a mental health problem, but the books say that a period of poor diet is known to precede diagnosis.
Okay.
With this westernised disease. So that my brother says it's the shit that we eat that is behind many of our ailments. And if you put it into a smartphone, what percentage of diseases are related to what we eat? So,
Yeah, I know. They're all linked, and I don't know the data specifically for MS, but they are certainly. It's a very important. It's a risk factor. I mean, it influences. And it can interact with your genetics as well, and it's an epigenetic phenomenon. So you're already at risk, and then you eat those foods, and then you can increase your risk. So it's a complex system, but yeah, yeah. I don't think. I mean, just to. Yeah, no, I agree with your brother. To put it bluntly, there isn't a single study that's shown that eating these foods are being good for our health. So when you put it bluntly like that, why are we eating it, and why do we think that it's okay that half of our calories come from ultra-processed foods? 2/3 of the calories of young people are coming from ultra-processed foods. We should just be, as parents, can't we do better? It's hard. It is hard, and I guess I just read Grant Schofield's book that he called, what do you call it? Choose your heart. Choose your heart. Choose your heart. And that is that. And I was reflecting on it. He talks about it in the idea of like adults choosing to whether or not what they eat and how much they move and all of those things. And you choose your heart now or you choose your heart later, which is some of the chronic illness that might occur. And I was thinking about it with families, and I thought, actually, with parents, it's about choosing your heart. Yeah.
But I think now as we, like a lot of us, have come here to listen to what people say, and that we can influence our friends and family.
Exactly.
And especially when, like our children, my daughter here, might have their own children, but if you start with the good food instead of the sugary yogurts and things like that.
Exactly. But I want to acknowledge that parenting is hard. It is so hard in this environment.
Yeah.
It is so hard. And it took, with the social media thing, it takes the school making a decision of no social media, no phones in the schools. It's got to be the same thing when it comes to these foods. No ultra-processed foods in lunch boxes. No, and we're going to scan them when they come in, right? I don't know, is that something you could do at your school? Yeah? You could try. Love to. I would happily throw a research student.
Should we propose it to the parents?
Yes. Yes. I think they'd all be on board.
The parents who package all this packaged food
I know.
into their lunchbox and the kids are unwrapping food.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at
But exactly. Well, you could start with your school. It would just start with one school. One school.
I think quite a few schools now are doing veggie
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But if you had if it shows up red on the Kaiwise app, you'd soon change the food in the school.
I think schools are a good measure of where society's at. We're very much at that point of loading children up with rubbish and packaging and sending them to school. Happy with that. Not too often do I see sandwiches, fruit, a copious amount of fruit and sandwiches given to children to eat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Never the sandwiches is generally white bread.
I know. We have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I hope that I've given you some food for thought. And is there any other questions, or are we going tired out? I've exhausted you. Go have some lunch. There's some wonderful grapes at the back of the room that should get eaten before you go.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I've not a very good voice, so I have to use this so you can all hear me. Thank you for laughing at that huge joke. I just want to thank Julia today for enlightening us all on what probably we've heard, but society doesn't allow us to live it. It is hard to try and live a healthy life at the moment, because my favourite packet of chips, and this is a morning.
Do you want it?
Thank you. This is my health. This is what I thought was healthy. It says organic. Chips are green. They look like a vegetable. And it's made by Ceres Organics. And it's even made in New Zealand. And it's not very good for me.
I mean, once in a while. It's once in a while.
Okay. I can do this. If I can do it, we can all do it. I love the way, Julia, that you shared your message. You're very passionate, and I love the passion. I don't know where that comes from, but bring it. That is gold. I'm sure we all got a lot from today. There is a lot of change that we can all make to our lives. And I know that from my point of view, from Thrive point of view, we're always looking at living that better life in a challenging environment. So it's how we live in that challenging environment is really important. So Julia, I have a few things here. A lovely card. So come forth. Come forth. The teacher can't present behind the table. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a lovely mug here from the Braintree, so thank you again. And hold on. Oh.
Thank you. Oh, they're beautiful.
I had a lovely, what are these? Proteas.
Uneatable.
Organic. Do I eat them? Stop it. And final, I would like to acknowledge obviously Julia for her great effort today and her ongoing work. I do know that, I'm just going to plug the next Thrive Connect event. We have the next session on the 6th of July, which is only a month and 3 days away. And that's featuring Lee Teschner from Laura Ferguson Brain Institute. So that will be very, very interesting again. She is obviously, her focus will be on mood with thriving in mood. That might be the best way to say it. So lots of work to do with that. That will be very interesting to come and hear. In the meantime, I expect that we all turn up with our vegetables and chips. Can't say that. But thank you, Julia, so much. I want to thank you all. There's a cup of tea at the back of the room, and please stay and have a chat if you want to. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
I'm just going to put Craig to the test. Okay, Craig. Which one's it going to be? Are you going to be brainy? Organic. Okay, I'll explain. Somebody once told me if you eat food that looks like one of your organs, like walnuts, then it's good for that organ. Is that correct? Walnuts are good for the brain.
Sounds legit.
Yeah. Sounds legit. Okay, so this is something that I scribbled it this morning. Sorry about the pen running out in the car on the way, but here we go. This is a little message, not just for Craig, but for all the people that have put Thrive together and created TACT and the people that are supporting them with education. Here we go. It's got a little picture of a mountain on the front of it, so that's why we start like this. When life puts mountains in our way, in our day, It's so much easier with someone to guide the way. Thank you, Craig, and all the others, for establishing Thrive, where we can be ourselves with nothing to hide. Thank you for your involvement in TACT, a valuable charity. That's a fact. A token gift of walnuts may not seem much, but they represent nourishment in all that you touch. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put my likeable fruit down. It looks like me. I just want to say the relevance to this. This is the most beautiful card because it represents my mana. It represents Taranaki. And that is a little lake called Lake Dive on Mount Taranaki that you need to walk 5 or 6 hours to, and that is the picture that you get when you get there. It is beautiful. So thank you. Very, very, very pertinent to me. I know that we are nearly at time and that the room's going to be used, so if you need a coffee, let's grab a coffee quick. Or there's a lovely cafe outside. We can go to that and enjoy it without a doubt. Thank you very much everyone for today. I'll see you in 3rd of July, month and 3 days for the Testament. We'll talk about mood. Thank you all. See you.